Good morning. Welcome to worship with the community of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm Reverend Shari, Woodbury, the minister here. Whether you are attending here in the sanctuary or online, I'm glad you've chosen to plug into this community. We come together to worship, which from the Latin means to remember that which is of worth. And so we reground ourselves week after week in our highest values. A special welcome to visitors. This congregation is a community of all ages and abilities. It's a community with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities. It's a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many sources of inspiration and share common liberal religious values. Whoever you may be, we invite you to bring your whole self into this space. Visitors are invited to fill out a yellow visitor form that is in the pews if you're here in the sanctuary, in the hymnal racks. If you're online, you'll find a link in the online form below the service description on YouTube. Everyone's also invited to subscribe to our YouTube channel and other social media. And if something touches you that happens here at the church or that you see in our communications, please share it with anyone else that you think might find something meaningful in that message. We have a few announcements. I'll do one, and then we're going to hear from Mark and from Shari. The UU Midwest Region History and Heritage Society will present a webinar program titled Turning Points on Tuesday, May 6th at 7 p.m. First Unitarian's story of how the Women's Alliance saved the church back in the day is part of the program. So this is an online webinar. You can get further information about that in Friday's e-blast. And if you're really eager, Dave Richardson will be downstairs at coffee hour, and I know he's got some flyers. All right, Mark.
For those of you who can't get enough of public protests, there's going to be one this Thursday from 4:30 to 6:30. Please line Dodge Street from Memorial Park going west in solidarity with labor and immigrants and democracy. Thank you.
And our incoming president, Shari Connor, has our final announcement.
So this is the last announcement about this from here. The 156th annual meeting for the First Unitarian Church of Omaha will happen on May 4th at 10:30 a.m. in person. This will be in lieu of service and will also be streamed on YouTube. And in person means that's how you vote. Thank you.
Visitors are certainly welcome to observe that if they would like, and I know Melissa, our membership coordinator, will also be hosting a first step session for anybody who's visiting and just wants to learn more about the church while we're doing our meeting. And now our prelude from our special guest pianist, Sarah Cornell. Also want to acknowledge that our church occupies the traditional treaty lands of the Omaha and Oto-Missouri tribal nations whose sovereignty existed long before the state of Nebraska. We extend our respect as well to other native tribes of Nebraska, including the Ponca, the Winnebago, and the Santee Sioux. And I invite forward Jennifer Larson to light the flaming chalice. All together, spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love, alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Kira and Jay share this morning's call to worship.
Holy One, you knit me together in my mother's womb. This is the voice of Psalm 139. I was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth.
Let us remember and celebrate this morning that each of our bodies was woven together in the depths of mystery, cells multiplying, tissue taking form, organs taking up their function, all under the silky cover of skin.
Let us gather in reverence for the gift of these bodies, whatever their ages, their shapes, their abilities, and may we know them to be channels of the world coming alive through us.
These bodies, these blessings, bring the world to life through seeing, taste, hearing, scent, and touch. May we bring our intricately woven bodies a sense of sacred caretaking.
In doing so, let us also be grateful for the embrace of the holy, the presence that creates and sustains life, the mystery that knit together each of our bodies, and the force of love that celebrates our desires.
I invite you to rise if that feels good in your body and join in singing number 354.
Thank you.
Each week, we put into practice our spiritual virtue of generosity by sharing with others through the community offering. Half of undesignated gifts in the offering plate and online go to a local cause which resonates with UU values. If you prefer to give with your smartphone, you can use the QR code or link. For April, our Share the Plate recipient has been NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI is a grassroots organization dedicated to education, support, and advocacy with anyone whose life has been touched by mental illness. Thank you for giving as you are able. Today, we will welcome several people to our community as members. We've got a few folks who weren't able to join us at this time, but are joining the church, Julia Sullivan and Lindy Dreibelbus. And I'd like to invite forward the three folks who are with us here today, Aaron Bagwell, James Bagwell, and Adam Gutierrez. And come on down and stand with Melissa. Yeah. This is a time of joy for our congregation as we welcome these new members and renew our shared commitment to this community.
We are pleased that each of you has chosen to formally become a member of this church. Today, we celebrate that commitment with the congregation. When we gather, we search together for meaning and truth in life, and we share our joys and sorrows with one another. Joining the First Unitarian Church of Omaha means being a deeper part of this gathered community, participating as voting members in the governance of this church, and supporting others and being supported in return. If you will join us in this mission and work, please say all together, I will.
Thank you. Okay, well, the members of the congregation, please rise as you are able and join in the congregational response. It's on the screen, and we're also going to do this as call and response, so you can just listen and echo each line. I'll say the words, and then you can join Melissa in echoing those lines. We, the members of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. Welcome you to our shared journey.
Welcome you to our shared journey.
Of community, discovery, and celebration.
Of community, discovery, and celebration.
We invite you to contribute.
We invite you to contribute.
To our work for healing and justice.
To our work for healing and justice.
And pledge to join.
And pledge to join.
Our strength and talents with yours.
our strengths and talents with yours,
believing that through our common effort,
believing that through our common effort,
we may better shape
we may better shape
the meaning of our lives.
the meaning of our lives.
May we work together
May we work together
to sustain this congregation,
to sustain this congregation,
a place of comfort and challenge,
a place of comfort and challenge,
a home from which to journey
a home from which to journey
and return once again.
and return once again.
We receive you with open hands and hearts.
We receive you with open hands and hearts.
Welcome. Congregation, you may be seated.
So new members, you've already signed our membership book, filled out all your paperwork. I also have some welcome gifts here for you to remind you that you belong to this community and that this community belongs to you.
It is said that membership truly begins not when you sign the book or appear before the congregation in a ceremony like this one, but when you find yourself disappointed in something that happens in the church and choose to return anyway, putting our covenant of right relations into practice and asking others to live into those promises also. So we're going to alternate reading the congregation's covenant to you now before I ask everyone to affirm it. If you are on the piano side, why don't you go with Melissa? She's going to start us off. And if you're on the organ side, you can read with me, and we'll just alternate.
We, the congregation of First Unitarian Church of Omaha, covenant together
To create a religious community where we freely explore our values and foster diversity as a source of communal strength.
Okay, piano side, we're going to step it up this time. To build healthy relationships, seeking to understand each other and respect our differences.
To listen deeply and endeavor to communicate directly, honestly, and compassionately, particularly when we are in conflict.
To do our best to make amends when we have hurt each other, even unintentionally. To learn from our mistakes, to forgive, and to connect in a spirit of understanding and commitment.
Members old and new, do you affirm your commitment to this covenant? If so, you can say just as you are, I do.
I do.
Reverend Alice Wesley Blair said, to join a free church is to sign a promise that may sound simple. It should sound simple, but which, if you keep covenant, brings you into intimate companionship with others who have promised to live with all the integrity you and they can muster together in all the years of your lives.
To Adam, Aaron, and James, may you find comfort in this community. May you find joy in it. May you be challenged in it. And may you know that your presence among us is a blessing to all.
We are so glad to have you as part of our community. If you haven't met some of these folks yet, you can share more greetings during coffee hour. Now we come to the time for sharing of joys and concerns. We just had a big joy. We'll find out if there are any others. When we share joys with each other, we can all be uplifted by that, which is something many of us really need in these times. And when we share the difficulties that have come into our lives, our community can be with us in care and support, whether that's a moral support or sometimes even very practical support. Colin, what have we got?
From Carol Ramsey, saying that Lois Norris is recovering from a fall. Please send healing thoughts, but no calls, please. From Donna Neff, a joy, saying yesterday's Parket Market raised more than $450, file number pending. Thank you to all our volunteers who made this event happen. from Melissa Gibson and YRUU parents, a joy, saying a big thank you to Ben Stallings and Kate Bryan for chaperoning our teens to a UU youth conference in Coralville, Iowa. The van is on its way home now. And nothing online.
Oh, I think we got one more.
So for those that are unaware, my girlfriend and I were planning on moving to Vancouver at the end of May and everything. As of this late last week, I got my acceptance letter for Langara College in Vancouver. So yeah, I have my audition on Monday. So.
We're so happy for you, Kindness, and of course, we're going to keep fighting the good fight down here while you're in Canada.
Bob Jones, who is a member here at the church forever, is going to turn 100 on May 10th. So it would be great if you all could all send cards to him. He may not be able to get here because he's a little tired, but he's still a wonderful person, and he would appreciate cards. And I'm sure his address is in the directory.
Wonderful. 100th birthday. That's a huge milestone. Amazing. All right. I invite you all to join me in song. Before we move into a time of silent contemplation, I'd like to draw your attention to, you may have noticed there's something underneath the butterfly banner here. It is emergency contraception. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, this church is part of a long tradition of commitment and action for reproductive rights and justice. And that's a stance that you affirmed several years ago with a congregational vote. The resolution we adopted states in part, our Unitarian Universalist faith affirms that all our bodies are sacred and that we are each endowed with the twin gifts of agency and conscience. Each of us should have the power to decide what does and doesn't happen to our bodies at every moment of our lives, because consent and bodily autonomy are holy. And when disparities in resources or freedoms make it more difficult for certain groups of people to exercise autonomy over their bodies, our faith compels us to take liberatory action. The congregation also said, we hereby signal our intention and commitment to mobilize our resources, including our church facility, our collective social networks, our time, our pooled funds, and the power of our leaders speaking authoritatively on behalf of the congregation in support of reproductive health and justice, including abortion access in Nebraska and beyond. We aim to listen to and follow the lead of those from affected communities, especially women of color. Since that resolution was passed in the fall of 2022, we have acted on this commitment in a variety of ways. One recent step has been to distribute emergency contraception through our church bathrooms, where anyone who has a need for it can easily, privately access it. Just look for the sticker, square pink sticker that says emergency contraception. We'll soon be expanding on that with free condoms and pregnancy tests in our bathrooms, too. That's thanks to Nebraska Abortion Resources. I'd like to offer a prayer of blessing and thanks for this emergency contraception, and then we'll move into a time of shared silence. You may wish to make your body comfortable and rest your hands in your lap. Perhaps take a deep breath. Spirit of life, may this community ever affirm people as they positively express their sexualities, including choices about reproduction and nurturing. We recognize that self-determination is a blessing for individuals, for the communities to which they belong, and for the earth. We recommit to creating a culture of respect and empowerment, one that extends to each person connected to this community and to their relationships. As sexual beings, may we each be equipped with the tools to make the choices that are right for us, including sound information, caring support, and resources like this emergency contraception. May we each continue to use with wisdom the twin gifts of agency and conscience. And as a community, may we continue to act in solidarity with those whose autonomy is placed most at risk by the disparities in our society. So may it be. Amen. In the shared silence that follows, you may wish to meditate or pray or contemplate your own commitments to reproductive health and justice. I will end the period of silence with the sound of the bell. The sound of birds and children feels like the perfect backdrop to this service. Sexuality is part of all that is our life. It's a dimension present in many moments of life, even when we don't realize it. I recall a memorable conversation I had when I was taking my kiddo to the dentist some years ago. I think she was about 6 or 7 years old at the time. We were chatting in the car, and my little girl asked me where people come from. Before I could start in with a lesson on the birds and the bees, my daughter observed that there would always be more people on Earth because people make more people. But Mommy, where did the first people come from? She wanted to know. I silently reminded myself of the parenting rule to answer only the question they're actually asking. So I began my best age-appropriate summary of evolution. But my child was not interested in primordial soup or primates. She already had her answer. God made the first people, she announced confidently. We came out of God's belly. God gave birth to everything. So there you have it. The original religion, goddess cosmology, developed spontaneously by a 6-year-old. My child clearly knew something about pregnancy and birth, and what I originally thought was the answer to the question, where do people come from? You can see the logic in her answer. It's so easy to make God in our own image. And for what it's worth, I had been singing along to I Am Woman just prior to this conversation. We can chuckle at a child's procreative leap of logic, but it points to something important, that sexuality and religion are not separate realms of life. They have been linked for as long as religion has existed in human culture, sometimes in ways that affirm life, and other times, alas, in ways that can harm. I did a little crowdsourcing on this topic and heard from people in our time, including some folks here, who had experienced religion having a negative impact on their sense of self as a sexual being. I heard comments that growing up, sex was just something that people did not talk about in church. Silence on this subject, silence on any subject, can speak volumes about what is taboo. It tells kids that something is not okay. Several people brought up purity culture, which can have a negative, even traumatic impact. Religious communities who treat heterosexuality as the only natural or moral way to be a sexual person have seriously harmed LGBTQ people and those who love them. Now, straight people don't escape scrutiny or pressure either. One woman shared with me the story of going to confessional as a Catholic teenager and confessing to sexual experimentation with a boy. It was nothing that would have gotten her pregnant or endangered her virginity, but the priest insisted she should immediately marry that boy. She was never so forthcoming in confessional again and eventually left the Catholic faith. For others, the connection between religion and sex that stands out in their childhood memories is the sexual transgressions of religious leaders. Jimmy Swaggart and other televangelists were all over TV and magazines in my formative years, one person wrote. She said, the ministers were always crying and begging forgiveness, and the women involved were painted as harlots. I want to acknowledge that I've also heard from born and raised UUs who remember some of our religious leaders engaging in what we would now clearly call sexual misconduct. But I also heard from people for whom religious traditions have carried important and helpful messages about sexuality. Here are some things people lifted up to me that they learned in religious settings. Learning that every body is sacred and holy. The value of being in a community that is inclusive and affirming, including around sexual diversity. Being equipped to avoid becoming a parent before one is ready, and from having sex in unsafe situations, one person learned about at church. Hearing that rape or molestation is not the victim's fault, important message. Learning reverence and respect for sexuality. And one person shared about a pastor teaching that biblically, sex is not only for having children, but also something people do because it feels good. And along with that, the importance of consent. Many, but not all of the people who named positive things within religious community indicated that they learned them in Unitarian Universalist congregations. Some raised in other mainline traditions were taught that sexuality was a good gift of God. A Buddhist friend of mine, who is also a survivor of sexual abuse, spoke of how she has found healing in that tradition. For example, in the many images created by artists of gods and goddesses in sexual embraces. In response to my crowdsourcing on social media Others shared about religious communities supporting them as a whole, including sexual person, in various ways. One person said, "I've really benefited from inclusive communities and trying to learn to believe that I too have inherent worth and value. I've long believed this about others, but not always about myself." She went on, "With this comes being more confident in boundaries, sexual and otherwise, and figuring out what I actually like in many domains of life." Another said, "You can't extricate one part of being human from all the parts that make us us. We are embodied beings, and that means all of our bodies, not just the thinking parts." One First U member recalled learning a lot through the welcoming congregation training this congregation went through something like 25 years ago now, particularly as a straight person themselves, coming to understand more what it's like for queer people in our heteronormative society, and that no one chooses to be discriminated against. A few other comments I got, modeling that queer relationships are just as healthy and normal as straight ones. And removing shame vocabulary and beliefs from this makes me a better parent and a safer friend. Talking about sexuality is an important part of creating sexually healthy lives and sexually healthy congregations. It's important to talk about because those things that are not talked about become, at best, places of restricted expression and growth in our lives. And at worst, they become places of shame, guilt, and suffering. And we do not want that for anyone. All of these values and motives help explain why Unitarian Universalist churches have long offered age-appropriate sexuality education across the lifespan, from preschoolers through older adults. This year happens to be the 25th anniversary of the current incarnation of that programming, which is called Our Whole Lives, or OWL for short. These days especially, our young people are bombarded with conflicting information and often harmful messages about relationships, gender, and sexuality. OWL provides a life-saving, shame-free, and justice-oriented approach to sexuality education. Unlike some public school programs, OWL is inclusive, affirming gender identity, sexual orientation, and diverse family structures. It's holistic, teaching not just biology, but also relationships, communication, and personal values. OWL is non-judgmental, creating a space that's safe for honest discussions that respect individual experiences. And OWL is empowering, giving young people the tools they need to make informed, healthy choices. OWL classes are led by trained volunteers who are committed to fostering honest, age-appropriate, and empowering discussions with children, youth, and adults. Facilitators lead meaningful discussions about identity, relationships, and decision-making. They help young people develop confidence in themselves and in their choices. Facilitators challenge harmful myths and promote respect and inclusion. And they support our UU values of dignity, respect, and justice in sexuality education. I'm really proud of this heritage of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, and just really happy to be celebrating 25 years of OWL in our churches, including in this congregation. Have I piqued your interest? Well, if I have, I encourage you to connect with our coordinator of children and family programs, Christina Strong. She can share more information about a facilitator training and potentially connect you with OWL training. There are both in-person and online options for getting trained. I think Our Whole Lives is one of the most impactful programs that we offer here at First Unitarian. And people who have facilitated the program in the past have shared that it's been one of the most rewarding ways that they have served in one of our congregations and our people. When I became a UU, one of the first religious education experiences I had was taking About Your Sexuality, which was the predecessor to OWL. This was in my home congregation when I was a young adult, long before I went into ministry, about 25 years ago. But there are several memories that have really stayed with me from that experience. The class for young adults was frank about sexuality on a wide range of topics. And before that, I don't remember having had direct conversations on these topics with a group of people. But in the cozy church library, with, of course, our covenant hanging on the wall, and snacks and drinks arrayed casually on a table, we covered a lot more ground than the usual sex ed territory of anatomy and physiology, safe sex, and pregnancy prevention. The subject of sexuality was approached in a way that was both holistic and surprisingly comfortable. One of the most significant parts of that experience for 20-something me was open conversation with peers about sexual orientation. So this was late 90s, I think. And that was not something I had much exposure to before that. Growing up in small town Iowa in the 80s, people didn't talk about whether they were gay or straight or bi or whatever. And as a straight person, it really opened my eyes to the realities of my queer peers. I feel like Unitarian Universalism is what made sexual diversity a normal, visible, comfortable part of being in community for me, and I am so grateful for that. My young adult group also heard from older adults in the congregation as part of the class. The conversation that most stands out to me was with a long married couple who talked together with us about how they handled attractions to other people when they arose. The couple acknowledged that it was human to develop crushes, and this was apt to happen even to people who were happily monogamously married. They modeled for us how to talk honestly, compassionately with a partner when such feelings developed. And we saw them chuckle about, how after an infatuation had passed, they would just, reassert their commitment to each other. And that honest communication and acceptance of normal human feelings was really beautiful to witness. If we have enough people interested in getting trained as OWL facilitators, by the way, we can offer OWL not only for young children and high school ages, which we're aiming to do next school year, but also for adults. There are young adult and older adult versions of the OWL curriculum. All right. Would you like to hear my top 10 list of why we should talk about sex at church? If so, you can give me your best George Michael impression. Let's talk about sex. Okay, no, actually, save that for the pirate karaoke on Saturday. Just give me a drum roll. Okay. The number 10 reason for talking about sex at church is that there's a close connection between sexuality and spirituality. Religion encompasses feelings of awe, wonder, interconnection, and transcendence of self. And these are all things that people may experience through their sexuality. One of my responders said, "I think of sex as more of a spiritual thing. It's more about energy and becoming one." Number 9 is because, like everything else in our personality and life, our sexuality evolves over our lifetime. People benefit from supportive spaces to listen for who they are now and what they want and need now. And as a culture, we keep learning more about this complex facet of our humanity. I personally have learned a lot about sexual and gender diversity from our UU youth and young adults. Number 8, because will, the strengthening of will and refining of the capacity to choose, is a fundamental role of religious practices and community. And it's enormously important in sexual ethics and sexual justice. Our faith community, I believe, should support us in growing our capacity to make healthy choices for the expression of our sexuality and our ability to act out those choices so that we have integrity in how we live out our sexual natures. And by the way, that includes the choice of celibacy as a sound choice for some. The number 7 reason we talk about sex at church is because we religious liberals still believe in empowering people to plan parenthood. We want to support people in their reproductive lives, whatever their choices. That includes supporting people when they choose not to have children, and when they struggle with infertility, as well as when they want children and are able to have them by birth or adoption. Can I get another drum roll? Number 6 is because sex is important to most committed partnerships, and the church can play a positive role in supporting the relationships of its members. Most couples need to give thoughtful attention to the sexual aspect of their relationship to remain close and fulfilled over the years together. Number 5, because survivors of sexual assault and abuse are everywhere. Each of us has people in our social circles who have been victims of rape or sexual abuse, either as children or adults. Survivors of sexual abuse and assault are in all religious communities, therefore, which means we have an opportunity to provide support for their healing. Number 4 reason to talk about sex at church, we can be sure that if survivors are everywhere, as they are, then people who commit acts of harm and people who may have already done so may also be in all of our social circles. Whether we know it or not, they're likely to be in our religious community too. So we need to take steps to protect our children and members of our community from current harm in the present. We also have the opportunity to help prevent harmful behaviors in the future through education into our values and that exercising of will, that strengthening of will. And we need to understand what positive role we might play in supporting people who have harmed others in the past and who have gotten help and committed to not repeating that behavior. Religious community can be an important part of change for the better. Safety policies and sexuality education both help us to prevent all types of sexual harm. Ready for number 3? You still with me? Okay, number 3 reason we talk about sex at church is because there's more to it than anatomy and reproduction. When kids get sex ed in schools, it often has that kind of science-y focus, which, that's an important part of things, but it may be divorced from the relational context in which sexual activity among young people occurs. But feelings are vitally important too. Along with parents and families, who are, of course, children's first educators, religious communities can help people of all ages to explore and express the feelings that are all intertwined with sexuality. Number 2. Thank you. To counter harmful messages we receive from society all our lives about sex, and implicitly about the worth of some people versus other people. For example, the idea that boys will be boys, and it's a girl's job to fight off those irascible boys. One person wrote, "Growing up, I learned from friends, magazines, books, movies, not much from school or parents. What I wish was that sex would have been taught and talked about as a normal part of our being, as it is an owl. And I wish there was more emphasis on the necessity that it should be egalitarian." Dramatic pause. Number 1 reason we talk about sex at church is because religion is about our wholeness as persons, and sexuality is a part of the life that is all of who we are. If you excise sexuality from the rest of life, you make people less whole, not more whole. Several people who responded to my questions wrote along these lines too. One person wrote that from being UU and teaching OWL, I learned, and somehow knew this, though I had never really seen it as part of a normal conversation or discussions, that our sexuality is as much a part of our whole being as everything else about us. There are so many arenas in which sexuality intersects with our values of inclusion, our quest for justice, the search for truth and meaning, as well as joy and connection, our spiritual work of healing, and our experience of being part of the interdependent web of life. So, let's keep talking about sex in church for our whole lives. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to rise if that feels good for our closing hymn, number 212. And you'll notice on this slide, I've altered the final words from sisters, brothers all to siblings, cousins all, and I invite you to sing it that way. Again, the person to talk to, if you're curious about that OWL training, is Christina Strong, our coordinator of Children and Family Ministries. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. But take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone.